At 16, my dad disowned me for my brother's lie. "You're a disgrace," he yelled. 2 weeks later, his pride shattered when he found out the truth. The words still echoed in my mind as I sat alone, thinking about how it all unfolded. It felt surreal. At that moment, everything I thought I knew about family, about trust, and about my place in the world crumbled. I used to believe that no matter what happened, family would always have your back. My dad, despite his gruff exterior, was supposed to be my protector. The one who'd defend me, even when things weren't perfect. But that night, when he yelled at me, something inside him snapped. It was like he didn't even see me anymore. All he saw was the lie. Alex's lie. Alex, my older. The one who always seemed to have it easy, who could charm his way out of anything. He was 2 years older than me, and, up until recently, we'd been close. We'd played video games together, stayed up late making fun of Dad's outdated ideas, even teamed up against Mom when she tried to get us to clean the house. There was a time when I thought we had each other's backs. But that all changed when Alex discovered he could manipulate our parents. I had always been the quiet one. The one who followed the rules, stayed out of trouble. Maybe that was part of why I was the perfect scapegoat. The first time Alex framed me for something, it felt like a small thing. He told Dad I broke a lamp. I didn't, but it didn't matter. Dad's wrath fell on me. And I never got the chance to explain. That wasn't the last time. As I grew older, it became a pattern. Little things. Lost chargers, missing items. All I had to do was be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Alex would accuse me. Every single time, Dad believed him without question. I was the one who got punished, and Alex, he got rewarded. It wasn't until that night, when everything came to a head, that I realized just how far Alex was willing to go to make sure I stayed in the shadows. The day started like any other. It was early October. And the air had a chill to it, the kind that made you want to pull your sleeves down and button your jacket tighter. I came home from school, dropped my bag, grabbed a snack, and went straight to my room. I'd been learning a new guitar song, something that had been stuck in my head for days. I wanted to focus, to forget the chaos that always seemed to swirl around the house. For once, it felt like things were quiet. I was halfway through the chorus when I heard Dad's voice. Not the usual call from downstairs, but the tone. The one that makes your stomach drop and your heart start pounding in your chest. "Ethan, get down here, quickly." I froze, my mind raced. What did I forget? Did I leave the dishes undone? Had I missed a chore? I put the guitar down carefully, trying to calm myself. But nothing could settle the fear gnawing at me. As I walked downstairs, I could already feel the tension in the air. The living room was cold, quiet except for the angry tone in Dad's voice. Dad stood there, arms crossed, his face flushed. Alex was seated on the couch, staring at the floor, looking innocent, like he always did when he was playing the victim. On the coffee table was a shattered picture frame, its glass scattered like the pieces of something broken, something that could never be fixed. A portrait of our family. "You think I'm stupid?" Dad snapped as soon as I walked in. His voice was louder than it needed to be, and the words stung. Alex looked up at me, but only for a second. His eyes were cold, calculating, like he was enjoying every second of this. "You broke this and lied about it," Dad continued, his voice rising. "Alex said you did it. And when he asked you to help clean up, you laughed in his face." I stared at the broken frame, my heart racing. "That's not true," I said, trying to stay calm. "I didn't even go into the living room after school. I went straight to my room." Dad didn't even let me finish. "Of course you did. You're always doing things like this. Always irresponsible. Always looking for attention." His words were sharp, cutting. "I'm done with this, Ethan. Don't expect to leave your room for the rest of the weekend." My mind raced, but I didn't fight it. Arguing never worked. I'd learned that by now. I glanced at Alex one last time as I turned to leave, but he wasn't even looking at me. There was the faintest twitch of a smile on his face, a smirk that said it all. I had no idea what was really happening. What had gone wrong? Why Alex would go this far? But the feeling that something was broken, deeply broken, settled in me. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, I sat in my room, trying to process it all. The silence in the house was deafening. I could hear Alex moving around downstairs, acting like nothing had happened. It was like he had won, and I was the one paying for it. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing that broken picture frame, knowing it wasn't just the frame that was shattered. It was everything. I had no idea where this would lead, but I knew one thing for sure, something had to change. I couldn't keep living like this. Not anymore. I didn't expect to be standing outside in the pouring rain, not like this. I didn't know where I was going. But I couldn't stay in that house. Not anymore. The door had closed behind me, and I didn't look back. It was cold, colder than I had anticipated, and the rain felt like ice against my skin, soaking through my clothes. I didn't have a jacket. I didn't even take my phone. It didn't matter. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't have to hear Dad's voice yelling at me. I didn't have to see Alex's smug expression. I just kept walking. The rain was steady, relentless. I didn't know how far I walked, but I didn't stop. Every step felt like it was taking me farther from the mess I left behind and closer to something different. Something unknown, but better than the suffocating silence I'd left in that house. After what felt like hours, my phone rang. I didn't even check it. It could be anyone. Maybe Dad calling to tell me to come home. Maybe Alex with his usual, "I was just kidding" excuse. Either way, I kept walking. I didn't know how long I had been walking when I finally saw the streetlight ahead. I recognized the building, Tyler's place. It felt like a small relief to see something familiar. I knocked on the door, and his mom opened it almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting for me. "Come in, Bryan," she said warmly, stepping aside to let me in. The smell of home, of something familiar and safe, hit me as I walked inside. Tyler was sitting on the couch, but his eyes immediately found mine, noticing the look on my face before I had a chance to say anything. "You're soaked," he said, his voice low and full of concern. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The weight of everything was still pressing down on me. Tyler didn't ask anything else. He stood up, grabbed a towel, and handed it to me. He didn't ask why I was out in the rain. He didn't ask where my family was. He just let me be. I sat on the couch, my hands shaking as I rubbed the towel over my hair. My mind was a mess. I felt like I was drowning in all the thoughts. All the emotions I couldn't put into words. The sound of the rain against the window was all I could hear. Tyler sat beside me silent. He didn't push me to talk. He didn't ask questions. He knew somehow that I needed to process it all in my own time. After a while, Tyler spoke softly. "You're welcome here, you know that." I looked at him, and for the first time since everything went down, I felt something like peace. I nodded, but I couldn't find the words to respond. What could I say? How could I explain the way my whole world had just shattered? How could I tell him that everything I thought I knew about my family had turned out to be a lie? I stayed at Tyler's house that night, and for the first time in days, I slept. It wasn't the kind of sleep you get when things are fine, but the kind where your body finally collapses from the exhaustion of holding everything in. I didn't have to hear Dad's voice shouting my name, or Alex's mocking tone. I didn't have to pretend anymore. But that didn't mean everything was okay. The next day, I woke up to the sounds of Tyler's mom making breakfast in the kitchen. The rain had stopped, but the cold still lingered in the air. I didn't know what to do next. I had no home to go back to. I had no family to turn to. Tyler walked in with a cup of coffee in his hand and handed it to me. "You're gonna figure this out," he said, sitting down across from me. "You'll find a way." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I could move on from everything that had happened, that maybe there was a way out of this chaos. But I didn't know where to begin. The truth, the whole truth, still felt too big for me to grasp. How could I fight against a lie so deeply rooted in my family? Tyler didn't ask me what I was going to do. He didn't ask me for a plan. He just sat there, waiting for me to find my way, and for the first time, I felt like someone actually saw me. I needed to leave, but for the first time, I wasn't running away from something. I was running towards something. I just didn't know what that something was yet. Tyler helped me find a way forward, even when I didn't have the strength to do it myself. He reminded me that there were people who cared. That there was a world outside the lies I had been living. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe I had a chance at something real, and that was enough to keep me going. I couldn't stay at Tyler's place forever. Even though it felt like the safest place in the world, it wasn't my home, and it wasn't where I belonged. I knew I had to figure out what to do next. I wasn't ready to go back to my family, not yet. I didn't even know if I ever would. The days blurred together in the small comfort of Tyler's house. I spent hours pacing back and forth in the living room, trying to piece together the mess that had been my life. Each time I thought about going back to get my things, a knot would form in my stomach. I couldn't face them. Not after what had happened, not after what Alex had done. But then came that moment. The one where everything shifted. It was a Tuesday when I overheard something I wasn't supposed to. I had stayed at Tyler's after school, not wanting to go home to a place that still didn't feel like home. Tyler's parents were out, and the house was quiet except for the faint noise of the TV in the background. I was rummaging through the kitchen, trying to find something to eat, when I heard Alex's voice coming from the hallway. He wasn't supposed to be here. How did he even know where I was? "Yeah, bro," Alex said, laughing as he spoke to someone on the phone. "It was easy. I told Dad Ethan did it. He freaked out like usual and boom, grounded him for the weekend. Easy. He didn't even question it." My heart stopped. I froze, the realization hitting me like a wave. Alex had orchestrated everything. The lamp, the punishments, the lies. It wasn't just random anymore. He had been doing it on purpose. I wanted to burst into the room and confront him, but I stayed still. I didn't want him to know I had overheard. I moved closer, holding my breath. Alex's voice continued, low and confident. Yeah, he's such a pushover. Every time I pull something like this he just takes it. Dad's too proud to see it, and Mom just lets it happen. It's almost fun. I felt like I was suffocating. I stood there, barely breathing, as Alex continued to gloat about how easy it was to manipulate everything, how effortlessly he turned Dad against me. My legs went weak, and I had to lean against the counter for support. The betrayal stung deeper than I thought it would. I had always suspected something was off, but hearing it from Alex's own mouth, hearing how he enjoyed it, made it real. He wasn't just trying to get me in trouble. He was doing it for his own satisfaction. I wasn't even a person to him. I was just a tool to play with. As the conversation ended, I retreated quietly, making my way back to the living room. The anger was simmering, but I wasn't sure what to do with it. Should I tell someone? What would it change? They already believed Alex. No one would listen to me. Not now. But I couldn't just let it go. I needed to do something. I needed to expose him, to prove that I wasn't the problem. The next few days passed in a blur. I stayed with Tyler, trying to plan my next move. I knew couldn't just go back to my family and pretend everything was fine. It wasn't fine. It never had been. I had to take action. But how? That's when I decided. I had to confront the truth, even if it meant facing the consequences. Even if it meant digging up everything I had buried. Alex had been lying about me for so long, and I was tired of being the one who suffered because of it. I started making calls, reaching out to people who could help. I contacted a counselor at school, someone who could guide me through this mess. I didn't want to involve anyone at first, but I knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. I wasn't going to let Alex control everything. I was going to fight back, not just for the truth but for myself. The more I planned, the more I realized that it wasn't about proving Alex wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could stand up to him. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life, about breaking free from the chains he had put around me. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I was ready to face it. I couldn't go back to the person I was before, the quiet, scared kid who let everything slide. I had to change. I had to do something that mattered, and that something started with the truth. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't keep living in the shadows. Not when I knew the truth. Not when I knew I was worth more than the lies they'd told. I wasn't just the family's punching bag. I wasn't just someone to be used. I was Bryan, and I was done being silenced. The next few days were a blur of uncertainty. I knew what I had to do, but every time I tried to plan it out, doubt crept in. The more I thought about confronting Alex, the more overwhelming it seemed. What if no one believed me? What if Dad still sided with him? What if this was all a mistake? I spent most of my time pacing around Tyler's house, trying to settle my nerves. I couldn't stay here forever. I needed to make a choice. I needed to face what was coming, whatever that would be. By Thursday, I couldn't wait any longer. I reached out to the school counselor, someone I had never spoken to before. Her name was Mrs. Douglas, and she had a reputation for being calm and understanding. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to tell anyone about my family's mess. But I knew I couldn't do it alone anymore. I needed someone to guide me through it, to give me a shot at justice. I called her office, my hands shaking as I dialed. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hello, Mrs. Douglas," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Bryan. How can I help you?" Her voice was soft, welcoming. It made me feel like maybe this wasn't such a bad idea after all. "I need to talk to someone. About what's been going on at home. It's bad. Really bad." My chest tightened as I said the words out loud. I had never told anyone about the way Alex manipulated everything, the way my dad never saw through it. It felt like a weight had lifted just saying it. "I can help, Bryan. Come in tomorrow, after school. We'll talk. You're not alone in this." I hung up the phone, a strange feeling settling in my chest. It wasn't relief. Not yet. But it was something. Something like hope, something I hadn't felt in a long time. The next day, I walked into the counselor's office after school. The weight of the world still pressing down on me. Mrs. Douglas greeted me with a soft smile and directed me to sit down. The room smelled like coffee and paper, a place that felt safe, if only for a few minutes. I told her everything. It came out in pieces, like shards of broken glass I was trying to put together. I explained how Alex had framed me, how he had lied to get me in trouble with Dad. I told her about the broken lamp, the missing chargers, the years of manipulation. I told her how my father never questioned Alex's stories, and how that had torn me apart. I felt lighter after speaking the words out loud, but also more exposed. I was finally putting it all out there, but what if it wasn't enough? What if no one believed me? Mrs. Douglas listened quietly, jotting down notes as I spoke. Her calm presence was reassuring, But I could still hear the questions in my own mind. Would she be able to help? Would anyone listen to me, or would Alex win again? I'm sorry you've had to go through this, Bryan, she said after I finished. What you're describing is manipulation, and it's serious. But I need to ask you, are you safe at home? Do you feel like you can go back there? Her question hit me like a punch in the gut. Safe? Could I really go back there? After everything that had happened, after being thrown out into the rain, could I really step back into that house? I don't know, I replied quietly. I don't think I'm safe there anymore. Her expression softened. We can help you figure this out. You don't have to go back until you're ready. But we need to take action. There are steps we can take to ensure your safety. I nodded, trying to hold it together. The emotions were bubbling up inside of me, threatening to spill over. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Not yet. I wasn't ready for that kind of release. Not yet. We'll start by talking to your parents, Bryan, Mrs. Douglas continued. We'll do it carefully, and we'll make sure you're supported through it. If you need time away from home, we'll arrange that. I didn't know what that would look like. But I knew it was the first step towards something that felt like hope. For the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe I wasn't alone in this. Maybe there was a way out. The conversation ended, and I left the office with a mix of emotions. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't stay in the silence, letting Alex control everything. I had to stand up. I had to find a way to make things right, even if it meant confronting my family in ways I wasn't prepared for. That night, I stayed at Tyler's again. It felt like the only place I could breathe. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I had taken the first step. It was a small one, but it was enough for me to finally feel like I had some control over my life. I wasn't going to let Alex win. Not again. Tomorrow, things would start changing. I was going to make sure of it. The next morning felt like the first real step towards something that might change everything. I hadn't slept much. Too busy running through scenarios in my mind, wondering if the counselor's plan would work. I was still staying with Tyler, and while I was grateful for the space, I knew it couldn't last forever. I had to go back. I couldn't keep running from my family. I had to face them, no matter how much it scared me. I had to do this for myself. By the time I walked into school that day, the weight on my shoulders felt heavier than ever. It was hard to think about anything else but the meeting I'd have with my parents, with the school, and whatever the hell was going to come out of it. I didn't know how they'd react when they found out I'd been talking to someone outside the family about what was going on. It was terrifying, but at the same time, it felt like the only way to make things right. At lunch I saw Tyler in the cafeteria, sitting at our usual spot. He waved me over, but I could barely muster a smile. Tyler's always been able to tell when something's off, even if I'm trying to hide it. As I sat down, he gave me that look, the one that said he knew exactly what I was thinking, but he wouldn't push me to talk. You doing okay? He asked quietly, his eyes kind. Yeah, I guess, I muttered, not knowing what to say. How could I explain this? How could I tell him that I was about to confront the people who had broken me, and I had no idea how it would turn out? Tyler didn't press me. Instead, he just nodded and ate his sandwich, but I could feel his concern. It wasn't easy to deal with all this alone, but he wasn't going to let me feel like I was alone in this moment. I appreciated that, more than I realized. After lunch, I walked into the counselor's office, the nerves in my stomach twisting tighter with each step. Mrs. Douglas was already waiting for me, a reassuring smile on her face, but I could see the concern in her eyes too. I wasn't sure if she was as prepared as I was for what was coming. I'm glad you came back, Bryan, she said, gesturing for me to sit down. We'll take this one step at a time, okay? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah, I'm ready, I said, though I wasn't sure if I was. We spent the next few minutes going over the plan again, making sure everything was in place. I had to talk to my parents first, and then we'd go from there. The truth was, I was terrified. What if they didn't believe me? What if Dad got even angrier, if that was even possible? What if he kicked me out again? What if Alex continued to lie his way through everything? Mrs. Douglas had a calm way of explaining things. If things get too tense, we'll stop. You don't have to do this alone, we can bring in support if necessary. I nodded again, feeling more determined with every word she said. It was clear that she had dealt with situations like this before, and the reassurance in her voice made me realize that I wasn't just a kid being pushed around by my family anymore. I had a voice, and for once, it was going to matter. After the meeting, I walked back to the cafeteria with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't exactly relief, but it was something close to it. I was about to face my family, about to let them know everything I had been hiding, the hurt, the betrayal, everything I had kept to myself for so long. I wasn't sure what I expected to happen next, But I had to keep moving forward. I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadow of Alex's lies. It wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about finding the strength to stand up for myself, no matter what happened. That night, as I walked home from school, my heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. When I walked through the front door, everything felt different. The house was quiet. I was used to the tension that always hung in the air. But tonight it was thick, almost suffocating. I found my dad in the living room, watching TV, and Alex was in the kitchen. As I stood there, trying to find the right words, it felt like everything had led up to this moment. "Dad, can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady but low. He turned to me, a frown already forming. "About what?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I'd been holding inside. About everything that's been going on. About Alex, about how he's been lying about me for years, and how you've never even given me a chance to explain. The silence in the room was deafening. Dad didn't say anything at first. His eyes were hard guarded. He wasn't used to me talking back like this, not about anything that mattered. Finally, he spoke. "You're going to have to do better than that, Bryan. If you want me to believe you, you need to show me proof." I nodded, and just as I was about to respond, I heard Alex's voice from the kitchen, cutting in. "You don't need to listen to him, Dad. He's just trying to make us all look bad. You know how he is." My heart sank. I could hear it in Alex's voice, his smug, self-assured tone, the one that always convinced Dad to turn a blind eye to everything, but not this time. I couldn't let it go. I took a deep breath, the words ready to spill out of me. "I've been trying to make everyone happy for so long, but I can't do it anymore. I'm not the problem, Alex is, and I'm not gonna stay quiet about it." The room felt like it was spinning, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Dad was still silent, but his gaze was locked on me, like he was trying to decide whether to believe me or not. "I told Mom everything too," I added. "She deserves to know the truth too." And with that, everything shifted. The quiet broke, and for the first time in years, I felt like I might finally be heard. The silence in the room stretched for what felt like hours. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the sweat on the back of my neck. I had finally said it. Finally told them what Alex had been doing all this time. I had no idea how they were going to react, but the wait was agonizing. Dad's eyes were narrowed, and Alex was sitting in the kitchen doorway, trying to act like he wasn't worried, but his face was tight, his usual smugness replaced with a flicker of panic. Mom hadn't said a word yet, her face unreadable. "I can't believe you'd bring this up now, Bryan," Dad said, his voice colder than I expected. "After everything we've done for you to go behind our backs and say these things about your own brother. He's been lying to you for years, Dad." I cut him off, the anger and frustration finally breaking through. "You've never once questioned him. He's been setting me up for everything, and you just take his side every single time. It's not fair. I'm not the problem here." Alex scoffed from the kitchen. "Oh, here we go again. You always make it about yourself, don't you, Bryan?" "Mom, Dad, I didn't do anything wrong. He's just mad because he got caught." Mom finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Caught? Alex, what are you talking about?" She sounded confused, like she wasn't sure what was happening. I felt a surge of hope. Something in the way she said it made me think that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to see through his lies. "He manipulated you both. He's been telling you lies about me, making it look like I did things I didn't do. I stopped myself before I said too much. This was the moment. I had to let her see, let her hear it from me. "I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, Bryan, but this isn't the way to fix it," Dad said, shaking his head. "You're tearing this family apart. Tearing the family apart." Those words hit me hard, harder than anything else. Because in a way, they were true. But the truth I had been hiding for so long was far worse than any lie Alex had spun. "Dad," I started, my voice trembling slightly. "I didn't want to tear the family apart, but I can't keep pretending everything's fine. It's been broken for so long. I'm just trying to fix it. To make you see the truth." Dad stood up then, his fists clenching at his sides. "And you think this is fixing things? This is a betrayal, Bryan. You've gone too far." I swallowed hard. I wasn't sure what I expected, but hearing him say it out loud like that, it stung. The words felt like a slap. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was the answer I needed. I couldn't keep living for his approval. For a moment, the room was still. It felt like time slowed down. Then, I heard Alex's voice again, sharper this time. "Dad, come on. Just listen to me. I didn't do anything, okay? Bryan's always been the problem. Always trying to make me look bad. This is all him." Mom's eyes flickered to me, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen before. There was confusion, yes, but there was also something else, a quiet realization, that maybe Alex wasn't the angel they'd always believed him to be. Her gaze shifted to Dad, and for a brief second, I thought she might speak up, but instead, She turned her attention back to Alex. She hesitated, her voice breaking slightly. I don't know what to believe anymore. That was all it took. Her doubt, her uncertainty. It was the crack in the wall I had been waiting for. I took a step toward her, my voice softer now, more vulnerable. Mom, I've been telling you the truth all this time. You've always told me to be the bigger person, to forgive Alex, but he's been using us, using me, to get what he wants. And you've never seen it. I need you to see it now. I'm not making this up. For a long moment, Mom didn't speak. She just stared at me, her eyes wide and tired. Then, she looked over at Dad, her expression unreadable. I've been protecting him for so long, Bryan, she whispered, almost to herself. I didn't want to see it. The words hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. She wasn't saying everything, but the change in her was enough. Enough for me to know she was starting to hear me, even if she didn't fully understand yet. Dad clenched his jaw and looked away, his face tightening. This is ridiculous, he muttered. You've crossed a line, Bryan. I could feel the weight of his disappointment pressing down on me. But there was something in his eyes, something that wasn't anger, but fear. Fear that he had missed something, that he had allowed this to happen in his own house. Mom finally turned to Dad, her voice low. Dan, we need to talk. This isn't just about Bryan or Alex anymore. This is about us. This is about what we've allowed to happen in this house. I didn't know if this would change anything, but I knew one thing for sure. The truth was out now, and no matter what happened next, I had taken the first step toward freeing myself from the lies. I'm done pretending, Dad, I said, my voice steady, no longer filled with the same fear that had gripped me before. I can't keep living like this. Not anymore. I turned to leave, knowing I had said everything I needed to say. The house felt colder as I walked out of the room, but it also felt different, somehow. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. The next few days felt like I was caught in some strange between space. Things weren't better, not yet, but they weren't as suffocating as they had been. There was still silence in the house, but it wasn't the same kind of silence. It was like something had shifted. Like the air had changed just enough that I could breathe. After the confrontation, things didn't explode like I thought they would. Dad hadn't come after me, hadn't yelled or told me to leave again. He was still here, still present in the house, but it was like I was a stranger to him. He hadn't forgiven me for what I'd said, but I also hadn't been completely shut out. Not yet. Alex didn't speak to me at all. He didn't look at me. He just went about his days like I wasn't even there. The same as always, but there was something different in his eyes. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe it was fear. I couldn't tell. He didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. It was almost as if he knew his time was up, but he didn't know what to do about it yet. I kept to myself mostly, staying in my room after school, trying to focus on homework, music, anything to avoid the tension. I didn't know what was happening in the house while I was hiding in my room, but I knew I couldn't keep avoiding it. I had made my stand. I had told the truth, and now the fallout was going to come. Then, on the third day after everything had gone down, I came downstairs in the evening to find my mom sitting at the kitchen table, staring at something in her hands. The moment I walked in, she looked up, her expression unreadable. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me, like she was trying to figure out if I was really who I claimed to be. I didn't know how to react. It wasn't anger in her gaze, but something colder, something I hadn't seen before. Bryan, she said finally, her voice almost distant. We need to talk. My heart skipped a beat. I nodded, taking a seat across from her at the table. It felt like I was sitting down to face some kind of judgment, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for whatever came next. She didn't say anything for a long time, just stared down at the piece of paper in her hands, her fingers tapping nervously against the edge of the table. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, softer than usual. I've been looking at what you said about Alex. I'd been thinking about it all day. About everything. I didn't say anything, didn't know what to say. I just waited for her to continue. She let out a slow breath, like she was carrying some heavy weight inside. I talked to your father about it, and I think. Her voice broke, and for the first time, I saw the crack in her composure. I think I've been blind. I don't know how I didn't see it. I should have seen it. The words hung in the air, heavier than anything else she had said. She was admitting something, something I had waited to hear for so long. Mom, I stopped myself. I wasn't sure if she was ready to hear the rest. I'm sorry, Bryan, she whispered, almost too softly to hear. I didn't protect you. I should have seen what was going on between you two. I failed you. It was like a dam breaking, and suddenly I could hear the strain in her voice. She didn't look at me, but I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. That was when I realized something. This wasn't just about Alex anymore. It wasn't just about what he had done to me. It was about what she had done, too. By not seeing, by not questioning, she had allowed the situation to fester, to grow worse. For a moment, neither of us said anything. She took a shaky breath, wiping her eyes quickly, like she didn't want me to see her weakness. "I should have listened to you," she murmured. "I should have trusted you more." I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, anger, confusion. I didn't know how to respond. I had spent so long waiting for her to notice, waiting for her to step in and see what Alex had done. But it had never come. And now, as she apologized, I realized that the moment I had been hoping for was bittersweet. I wasn't sure how to take her apology. "I didn't want to tear the family apart, Mom," I said quietly. "I just wanted you to see what was really happening." She nodded, her gaze never leaving the table. "I know. And I should have. I should have been better for you. For both of you." I looked at her, trying to process what I was hearing. It wasn't the apology I had imagined, but it was something. It was a crack in the foundation. I wasn't sure if it would be enough to fix everything, but it was a start. "Where do we go from here?" I asked. She finally looked up, her eyes searching mine. "I'm going to talk to your father. We're going to figure this out together. But it's going to take time. Things can't just be fixed overnight." I nodded. I didn't know how long it would take, or if things would ever be the same. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was a chance. The next few days were quiet, but the tension in the house had shifted. Mom and Dad started talking more openly, and Alex, well, he stopped acting like he had everything under control. The changes were subtle, but they were there. Maybe it wasn't the resolution I wanted, but it was a step forward. I didn't know where things would go from here. But I knew one thing: I had started to take control of my life. I had started to find my voice, and I wasn't about to let anyone take it from me again. The days that followed felt like they moved in slow motion. Every moment seemed to stretch out as I waited for something, anything, to change. But it was more than just waiting. It was about breathing again, really breathing. I had started to reclaim a part of myself I hadn't known I'd lost. At school, the rumors about my family started to trickle out. I didn't care. Let them talk. They didn't know the half of it. I had bigger things to focus on. Tyler was still by my side, though I could tell he was getting worried. He could see the way I was pulling back, but I couldn't let anyone in too close. Not yet. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate his support. It was more that I wasn't ready to share everything with him. I didn't know how to explain what was going on in my head. Every time I walked back into my house, the quietness was there, but it wasn't the same as before. It wasn't suffocating anymore. My parents were trying, really trying, to fix what they had broken, but it wasn't easy. There was a lot of silence between us, a lot of unspoken words. My dad hadn't apologized, but I could tell he was processing it. Mom, she was different. Softer somehow, like she was actually seeing me for the first time in years. But things weren't perfect. Alex was still there, still part of the equation. We didn't speak. Not after everything that happened. I couldn't even look at him, without feeling a coldness creeping into my chest. He was the reason I'd felt like I wasn't enough, like I had to shrink in the background while he got all the attention. He was the one who had made me feel invisible in my own family. And now, he was still here, like nothing had changed. I started spending more time at the music store after school. Keith, the manager, had become one of my few solid supports. He didn't ask questions, he just let me do my thing. I spent hours tuning guitars, learning new songs, and just being in a place where no one expected anything from me. The steady rhythm of the music was soothing, and it felt like it could heal parts of me I didn't even know were broken. One evening, about 2 weeks after the confrontation, I was sitting at the music store, helping a customer with a guitar when I got a call from my mom. "Bryan, I think it's time we talk," she said, her voice shaky, like she wasn't sure how I'd react. "About everything." I hesitated, my fingers tightening on the guitar strings. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I think we need to talk about Alex. And about what you said. About how things can't go back to normal." I felt the weight of the conversation settle over me. It wasn't just about Alex anymore. It was about the truth, the reality that had been ignored for so long. I wanted to ignore it to avoid facing it, but I couldn't, not anymore. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll be home in an hour." When I walked through the front door, the house was quiet again. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table, and Alex was nowhere to be seen. It felt like the calm before a storm. Like everything was about to tip over into something new. I sat down at the table, looking at Mom and Dad. For a moment, no one said anything. We just looked at each other, like we were all waiting for someone to make the first move. Mom was the first to speak. "We've been talking," she said quietly, "your dad and I, and we realized that we've let things go too far. We've let Alex get away with things that we shouldn't have, and we've ignored what you've been going through." Dad's voice broke in, sharp but not angry. "I don't know what happened to us, or I don't know how we let it get so bad. But I can see now. I can see what you've been dealing with. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. The apology wasn't what I expected, but it was enough. Enough to make me feel like, maybe, just maybe, there was a chance to rebuild something. Not everything. I didn't think things could go back to the way they were before, but maybe that wasn't the point anymore. I looked at Dad and said, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to see me, to see what I've been going through. Mom nodded, her eyes filled with regret. We're gonna work on it, Bryan. I don't know how, but we will. But it's not just about you. It's about all of us. It's about the whole family. I felt a strange relief but also a deep exhaustion. This wasn't the end of the road, not by a long shot. It was the beginning of something else, something that would take time and patience. But for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in it. I'm not gonna pretend like everything's okay, I said, my voice low, but I'm willing to try. We all have to. The next few days were quieter. Alex stayed in his room, not engaging with anyone. I didn't care. I couldn't expect him to change overnight. But things between Mom, Dad, and me were different. They weren't perfect, but they were real, and that was all I needed right then. A week later, I received an email from the music competition I had entered. They were offering me a scholarship for my song, the one I had written months ago. The song was about everything, the hurt, the silence, the struggle. I hadn't realized how much of myself I had poured into it, until I saw the recognition for it. It wasn't just a win for me. It was a reminder that I had power over my own life. No one else could define who I was anymore. As I stood in the living room, looking at the email on my phone, I realized something. I had done it. I had walked away from the past, from the family that had held me back, and now I was free to live my life on my own terms. It wasn't about forgiveness or revenge. It was about freedom from the lies, from the expectations, from the weight of my past. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally move forward.